I have hung in this tower since 1846, a bronze sentinel above Wall Street. My voice has echoed across Manhattan's southern tip through wars, depressions, and celebrations. I am the bell of Trinity Church, standing steadfast at the head of Wall Street, my bronze body cast from a mixture of metals that gives me my distinctive tone. Not too bright, not too somber, but clear enough to be heard for blocks when the wind carries my voice. For over 150 years, I've watched Manhattan transform. Around me, I've seen horse-drawn carriages give way to automobiles, watched skyscrapers rise from the earth like metal mountains. I've witnessed the financial district grow from modest brick buildings into a forest of gleaming towers that nearly blocked the sky from my view. Most prominent among them were the Twin Towers, those magnificent structures that rose in the early 1970s, standing like industrial giants to my northwest. The morning of September 11th, 2001, began like any other Tuesday. The sky was remarkably clear that day, a perfect azure blue without a single cloud, what pilots call severe clear. The air was crisp with early autumn, carrying the scent of coffee and pastries from the cafes below. From my perch, I could see commuters streaming out of the subway exits, briefcases in hand, beginning another day in America's financial heart. At 8:46 a.m., I felt it before I heard it. A tremor through the air, a disturbance in the rhythm of the morning. Then came the sound, the roar of engines pushed beyond their limits, followed by an impact that sent vibrations through my bronze body. I watched in horror as American Airlines Flight 11 tore into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Black smoke billowed against that perfect blue sky, papers fluttering like wounded birds. My caretakers rushed to the scene, leaving me alone in my tower. For 17 minutes I watched in silence as the North Tower burned, as people below pointed upward in disbelief, as the first emergency vehicles arrived with sirens wailing. Then at 9:03 a.m., United Airlines Flight 175 appeared. Aimed deliberately at the South Tower, the impact shook my tower, rattling the wooden frame that has held me for generations. I felt the vibration in my very core, a terrible resonance that would not fade. In all my years, I had never witnessed such deliberate horror. Yet even then, I did not understand that my city, my home, had just changed forever. I've told for countless funerals and memorials over the decades, but I was not prepared for what would unfold in the next hour. From my vantage point, I could see people gathering on the streets below, looking upward in horror at the burning towers. First responders rushed toward the danger. Police officers, firefighters, paramedics, heroes moving against the tide of those fleeing. At 9:59 a.m., a sound unlike any I'd heard before filled the air. A rumble that began softly, then grew to a deafening roar. The South Tower, standing for just 56 minutes after impact, began to collapse. From the top down, floors pancaked onto one another in a cascade of concrete, steel, and glass. The cloud of dust and debris rose and expanded, enveloping everything in its path, rolling through the streets like a tempest. The cloud reached my church, coating my bronze surface in the fine grey dust of pulverized concrete, office papers, and things I cannot bear to name. In that dust cloud were the remains of a world that had existed just moments before. The vibration of the collapse made me swing slightly, producing a soft, inadvertent toll. 29 minutes later, at 10:28 a.m., the North Tower followed its twin. Again came the terrible sound, the rain of debris, another cloud of dust. In less than 2 hours, the New York skyline I had known for nearly 3 decades was transformed. Where 2 proud towers had stood, there was now only empty sky and rising smoke. My caretakers returned, covered in dust themselves, eyes red from crying and from the caustic air. Someone, I never learned who, decided that I should toll. not in the measured, organized manner of regular services or scheduled commemorations, but continuously, a voice of mourning and resilience amid chaos. And so I told as people, streamed northward, away from the devastation, some injured, all traumatized. I told as firefighters and police continued to rush toward ground zero. I told as the dust began to settle, revealing a landscape transformed into something unrecognizable. I told for those trapped beneath the rubble, for those who jumped rather than burn, for those who had gone to work on a beautiful Tuesday morning, never to return home. Each peal of my voice carried across the altered cityscape, a reminder that, even in darkness, some things endured. I would not be silenced by terror. I would bear witness with my voice. For days after the attacks, I continued to toll, my bronze voice hoarse with dust but unwavering. My church became a sanctuary, not just for prayer, but for exhausted rescue workers who needed rest, for volunteers distributing water and food, for those seeking a moment's peace amid the chaos of recovery efforts. The scent of burning materials lingered in the air for weeks, a mixture of electrical fires, jet fuel, and materials I dare not contemplate. From my tower, I watched the rescue operation evolve into a recovery mission. The hope for finding survivors dimmed with each passing hour, yet the workers below never flagged in their dedication. On September 14th, President Bush stood atop the rubble with a bullhorn. Though I could not hear his words from my position, I could see the gathering of rescue workers around him, could feel the momentary surge of unity and resolve that rippled through the crowd and beyond. That same day, a service was held in Washington National Cathedral, and churches across the nation joined in prayer. I told in harmony with them, our collective voices reaching across a wounded country. I witnessed remarkable acts of kindness. In those dark days, volunteers arrived from all over, construction workers from upstate, firefighters from across the country, ordinary citizens bringing whatever they could offer, food, water, fresh socks, or simply their hands ready to work. Makeshift memorials appeared on street corners with candles, photographs and handwritten notes to the missing and the lost. The financial markets remained closed until September 17th, the longest shutdown since 1933. When they reopened, I watched. The traders returned to work, many still in shock, but determined to demonstrate that America's financial heart would continue to beat. My church, miraculously undamaged despite its proximity to ground zero, became a symbol of permanence amid devastation. Through it all, I continued my vigilance, tolling not just to mark time, but to affirm life. Some nights, when the recovery work continued under floodlights, my sound carried across the eerie quiet of southern Manhattan, normally bustling, but now largely evacuated. My voice reached the ears of those searching through rubble, a reminder that they were not alone in their sacred task. By early October, a terrible truth had settled over the city. Most of those missing would never be found alive. Yet even as hope for survivors faded, another kind of hope emerged, a collective determination that what had been destroyed would be rebuilt, that life would continue, that terror would not have the final word. 24 years have passed since that September morning, yet the memory remains as vivid as the dust that once coated my bronze surface. I have watched Lower Manhattan rebuild itself, not to erase what happened, but to honor it through resilience. The Freedom Tower now stands where the Twin Towers once did, its spire reaching higher than its predecessors, defiant against the sky. The memorial pools mark the footprints of the original towers, water endlessly cascading into voids that can never truly be filled. From my tower I can hear the water's constant flow, a counterpoint to my occasional tolling, both of us keeping vigil in our own way. Each September 11th, I participate in the ceremonies of remembrance. When they read, the names, 2019 77 souls lost in New York, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania, I toll softly in the background. For the children who never knew their parents, for the spouses who never stopped missing their partners, for the parents who outlived their children. Each ring of my voice carries 2 decades of remembrance. I've witnessed how grief transforms. Over time, the raw wounds of 2001 have scarred over for many, though they still ache when touched. I've seen tour groups visit the memorial, some too young to remember that day firsthand. I've watched as firefighters and police officers, fewer each year of the original responders, gather for commemorations. Their ranks thinned not only by time, but by illnesses contracted during those days of toxic air. Trinity Church still stands as it has since 1846, my home and my purpose unchanged. Yet I am not the same Bell I was before that Tuesday morning. How could I be? I carry within my metal memory the echo of those terrible sounds, the impacts, the collapses, the cries. But I also carry the memory of how this city, this country, responded with courage, with sacrifice, with an outpouring of love that answered hatred with humanity. When I toll now, it is with the knowledge that sound travels not just through air, but through time. Each ring connects the present to that clear September day, reminding those who hear me that remembrance is not just about looking backward, but about carrying forward, carrying the lessons, the losses, and most importantly, the love that emerged. From the dust and ashes, I am just a bell, an object of metal and wood. But for over 170 years, I have been a voice for this community, in celebration, in mourning, in perseverance. And if there is one truth I have learned in all my years of witness, it is this: what endures is not the towers we build, but the courage with which we face their falling, and the compassion with which we help each other rise again.